Business owners, executives, and entrepreneurs, get your pen and paper ready and tune in Sundays at 1 p.m. for Evolution Strategies, Business Sustainability and Growth Simplified. You must evolve to meet the challenges of today's marketplace. This is the only show in the Philly metro area that walks you step by step through success factors that make or break your brand. Want some free advice? Call in Sundays at 1 p.m. to talk to your host, Carolyn Lighty, and a panel of experts for Evolution Strategies, Business Sustainability and Growth Simplified.
Good afternoon and welcome to this edition of Evolution Strategies. Today we'll be talking about connecting the dots. I'm Carolyn Lighty, your host, and we're sure you're going to enjoy today's show. Remember, as a child, you were given a worksheet with numbers that you needed to follow in sequence in order to uncover a picture of a flower, a teddy bear, a house, or whatever? Well, fast forward to today. Think of that exercise and replace the dots with people, places, and things you need in order to achieve success for your business. Connecting these dots will enhance your business, provide you with the essentials of success, help you develop more productive and collaborative teams, and return to you in the form of personal and financial reward. That is, if you ensure that those dots represent quality contacts with a defined value. I want to stress that this is not a one-way street, though. I'm not suggesting that you go out looking for connectors with a what can you do for me attitude. In fact, I'm suggesting just the opposite. You should approach each connector with the mindset of what can I do for you. Then the rules of karma and quid pro quo take over. I just want you to be cautious not to waste your time and resources surrounding yourself with detractors and what some people call haters and takers. Today, joining me to talk about connecting the dots and the importance of networking and finding mentors for your business and for your professional growth are Brian Drysdale of the Delaware Referral Group and owner of Instant Imprints of Delaware. Brian, good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And also, in our Startup Spotlight today, we want to feature someone we talked about on last week's show. Mac, I don't know if you knew that we talked about you, but Mac Nagaswami of PenguinAds is also on the show today.
Hey, good afternoon.
Great. Good. Brian, first tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and when you caught the entrepreneur bug and so forth.
Sure.
How did that happen?
I'm spent most of my life in Delaware. Bounced around a little bit growing up, but went to high school at AI DuPont and went up to outside Boston to school, Babson College. It's one of the top entrepreneurship schools in the country.
Cool.
Thought I was going to go there to learn how to be an accountant, and about 2 weeks in, I realized I want to hire an accountant. I don't want to be an accountant. So the culture up at Babson is fantastic. Really builds and grows that entrepreneurial spirit. So after graduating, it was, what business do I want to start? And so it was, some small jobs while I tried to figure out what it was I was going to do. But pretty much started Instant Imprints of Delaware a year and a half after I graduated.
Oh,
and
wow.
So, yeah, it was...
That's great. You were extremely aggressive, I think.
Well, it felt right.
Yeah.
There were a lot of, I want to do this, and we'd get so far down the road and things wouldn't happen. We'd run into a bump, and some of them we could have forced ourselves over, but others were like, it's kind of a deal breaker. So
when you talk about bumps in the road, you're talking about other types of businesses that you looked into?
When you're trying to, for a retail situation, if certain lines, and if one of the main suppliers says, or main brand says, no, I'm not going to support you, there's no point in going through with it.
Then you have no
so
business.
We navigated a little bit, and Instant Imprints is a franchise.
Okay.
I was concerned. I didn't want to be in a franchise, because my perception was, Jiffy Lube, McDonald's, Subway. There's only one way to do things. You're pretty much given a cookie cutter, and all you have to do is show up, and it's going to work.
Yeah.
And that's not what I wanted. I wanted something I could call my own.
Yeah.
Instant Imprints is different. They allow you to make your own mistakes. They allow you to learn. The main advantage is the group, the network, and the buying power that we get, because our vendors look at us as a multinational company, as opposed to just Wilmington, Delaware.
That's an interesting point, because when you're a franchise, it gives you a bigger footprint, so to speak.
Absolutely.
It's interesting because in terms of franchising, typically you're looking at some level of continuity they want to establish across all of their branches, retail locations, or what have you. So you're saying that they're a little more lax with it, or because usually that speaks to quality?
No, there's still definitely
like
a focus on what we're trying to do, but it's not a cookie cutter. It's not turnkey.
Yeah.
You know, we do get training, extensive training on our machines. We do just about all the production in-house. So we're able to maintain instant imprints quality as opposed to relying on someone else's quality. We can turn it around in our time frame, which is normally a lot faster than what other third-party vendors could turn it around. But yeah, it's more... You're not told exactly how to do things.
Yeah. So you have some ability for to add your own little flavor.
Absolutely.
To what it is that you're doing.
Absolutely.
When it comes to support in terms of advertising and marketing your business, do they provide that?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yep, they help out with that from corporate, and it's gotten a lot better over the years. We've been growing as a franchise as well. So at the same point, my location's been growing, so is the franchise. So it's been really cool to see the evolution in the whole piece.
So as an entrepreneur, you decided to take the route of franchising versus, build it your own, make it your own. I mean, it's still your own, but do you feel there are different challenges involved when you go one way or the other? Absolutely.
Some of the challenges you have, starting on your own is kind of lost in the ocean. You don't know where to turn to. And even as being part of a franchise, our heavy involvement is out on the West Coast. So there was still a lot of figuring it out for yourself. Basic thing, your big national vendors, I knew where to go to for my T-shirts. But your sign suppliers and your substrates, you're not going to get that stuff from California. You can't ship that across the country. So it's, okay, how do I find vendors here? Where do I find my blanks? Where do I find that? So it was a lot of calling other sign companies, or we've got one other location in Downingtown, and then the next closest is in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we're pretty spread out on the East Coast.
So as it relates to, and I looked at your website a little bit, and you talk about, branding and promotional items. Those are the types of products that you offer. When it comes, and you're speaking of something that's tangible when you're talking about that. It's not branding from the mindset of a marketing branding kind of campaign. It may be part of a campaign.
It's part of a campaign, right?
So give me an idea of some of the products that you have.
Anything that you need to put a logo onto. That's the simplest way to put it.
Anything. Okay.
Anything that you put a logo onto. The best visual I can give someone quickly is if you go to a trade show and you walk up to a trade show booth, everything that you see there that they're presenting is something that we can do. The table throw, the backdrop, what they're wearing, what they're handing out, the promotional products, the business cards, everything. Everything you see with their logo on it, we've got a way to make it happen.
So what is your involvement then with the Delaware Referral Group? How did you get involved with that group?
Well, Dave Perino, who's now the president of the group, came to me over the summer, was telling me about the group, and I've been involved in other networking groups, and he was explaining a little bit of the differences with DRG, and it's like, okay, I'll give it a shot. Came out to the lunch, and we have our lunches twice a month, and down at Union City Grill, and got a different feel. It was that each group of people is different, but you often see in Delaware a lot of overlap from one group to the next, and the same people that are showing up to the county chamber, the same people that are showing up to the state chamber, and so it's a lot of overlap from one to the next. This somehow was a group of people who I really didn't know many of them.
Interesting.
So it was cool for me to meet a bunch of new faces in the business world. And then I continued to get involved kind of from a leadership standpoint for the Secretary of Community Outreach. And I find that it's a cool thing to have a referral group that, of course, your main focus is passing business back and forth amongst business owners. But the fact that everyone in the group also wanted to give back to the community, whether it was time or donations. We've got an event coming up on Tuesday, and the admission fee is a canned good. So we're just going to give back to the community, and it's really cool to see other business owners that have the same values that I do, as far as giving back to the community that's supporting our business.
So do you see networking as an art? Is there an art to networking?
It's a blend. Sure, there's some science to it. The more you get out there, the more you keep your face in front of people. That's the idea. It's almost, I find that's part of your branding strategy as well.
Absolutely.
If you're out in front of people, they don't have the opportunity to think of someone else when it's time for them to purchase from you.
I'm going to switch over to Mac because I want him to get into
Sure.
some of this conversation with us on networking.
Sure.
Mac, you're the founder, owner, president, the brainchild behind PenguinAds.
Right. I guess you could say that, sure.
Now, do you have partners?
Yeah, I do have a partner. I have a really good partner, and his name is Greg Starr, and he's also University of Delaware alumni.
Okay. And so, Mac, you look like you're about 12. So, actually, I see a little bit of a shadow above your lips. So maybe, okay, I'll give you 15. Okay?
Put on 3
I'll put
3
you
years.
up to 15. So, and that's really inspiring. It's always great to see that there are young people out there that are looking to strike out on their own because,
Well, thank you.
unfortunately, there used to be a time where there was a lot of loyalty in the major corporations in terms of, and the ability to have access to those types of high-level positions. It was a little bit easier to get. And now, you're just as good as your last benefit to the company, because if you're not making them feel that you're worthwhile keeping around, sometimes you're just out of there, regardless of how much skills you have or how much you've dedicated yourself to the job. So sometimes
Absolutely
a great
agree.
option is to be in business for yourself. What was the tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you decide to start your own business?
Okay, sure. Well, so first of all, I think a big thing I have to attribute it to is just learning, which is I'm kind of addicted to learning. So I like to learn about everything, and especially topics which I'm a little more inclined to study more so than others, which is politics, economics, entrepreneurship, kind of the interdisciplinary study of all three of those subjects combined. So what you do is when you have a field that you really like, is your body is just inclined, your mind is inclined to learn more and more and more.
That's right.
And then, I took some really phenomenal classes at University of Delaware. One of them was economics of entrepreneurship. One of them was an international relations course with Daniel Kinderman and James O'Neill, who was the professor of the economics of entrepreneurship class. And what they kind of do is, what a good professor will do is they'll kind of pry your mind open to think for yourselves instead of telling you to just take a fact for what it is and not question it. So one of the most fundamental things is the ability to think for yourself. And when you get that ability, you start to realize that, I don't have to follow that standard protocol of graduate from school, get a job and work for somebody, have kids, retire and then die. It's like, you have the opportunity.
You left out the wife.
Get the wife and the car and the mortgage.
Right.
So
Go
it's,
ahead, I'm playing with
it's just like, at the end of the day is you don't have to follow that normal structure, that normal prototype of what everybody thinks that you should fit in. So once you can get your mind out of that paradigm, it's like, you're very liberated. And one thing that was big for me was realizing that, hey, I don't have to graduate my undergraduate degree from UD and then look to somebody else to determine my future.
Right.
It's like, I feel if I am strong enough, I'm independent enough, if I have enough self-control and enough will, this is something I can do myself. I don't need to be hired by somebody else, as I can create my own future, create my own career. And, a very powerful coupling is when you can couple that kind of intellectual mindset with the drive to build something that you're very passionate about.
Wow. You have just set the stage for everyone in terms of the foundation for becoming a successful entrepreneur, because if you don't have the passion, that drive and determination, and the mindset that you're talking about, I don't have to do it the way everybody else is doing
absolutely.
it. You can break the mold. You don't have to become a part of that status quo. And that's
Absolutely.
fantastic. What a great role model you are. So tell us about PenguinAds. What exactly is that? I'm seeing these little things walking around. Black and white.
Yeah, sure. So PenguinAds, first of all, I guess let me clarify the name, right? Because that's also a very common question. But what it just came down to was I wanted something bold and that resonates strongly in the minds that when you say it, it's hard to forget it. And although there's no good direct linkage between what our service does and this name, is over time, if you establish the business so well is that name becomes that business.
Amazing. That's right. You're absolutely right. I'm just so impressed with you.
Well, thank you.
For being so young. I mean, you're extremely wise, extremely wise. So what exactly does it do? You know, it's an advertising medium.
Yep.
Describe it to us.
Sure. So what it is it's an alternative out-of-home advertising medium. So right now in the market is you're kind of, if you want to add, so, you know, let me backtrack. Let me take a couple steps back, which is when any company wants to invest advertising dollars is you have to figure out how you want those advertising dollars spent. And you are confined by the limits of what the market offers. And there are various options. So there's print advertising, you know, newspapers, news journals. There's digital advertising on your cell phones, on the television. And then there's out-of-home advertising. And this is a space that our service falls under. And then there are subgroups within this sect of advertising, such as billboards, such as dart buses right here in Delaware, transit advertising in the bus shelters. And then what we're doing is we're adding a new subgenre. So we're adding a new subcategory of putting advertisements on cars. And what it is, it's you know, it's the essence of entrepreneurship when you have an uncapitalized on opportunity. Because when you think about it, there are cars that drive thousands upon thousands of miles in areas where they can make a high number of impressions. And right now that space is just going, that real estate space on the outside of their car is just going unused. There is market value on the real estate space on their car, which is not being utilized because there are drivers that drive plenty of miles in areas where people can see it, in areas where they can get a lot of exposure. So, you know, why don't we create a win-win situation where we are the middlemen linking companies to these car drivers to put an advertisement on their car. So the incentive for the companies is, hey, you know, we can get our message out in an entirely new way in new spaces that other out-of-home areas can't reach. And the incentive for the cars drivers to participate with this business is, you know, you get paid for doing something that you do already.
Right.
So as long as you don't mind having an advertisement on your car for a company that you also support and like, right? You know, it's a match made in heaven.
So they get paid for having the advertisements on the car. They get a portion of whatever fee you're charging to
Absolutely.
the advertiser.
Yes.
Okay. Interestingly, Brian, I see an interesting collaboration there because who's creating those ads that go on the car?
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a vendor for that, but you guys can discuss that off the air.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So does this appeal more to a younger driver? Like what kinds of, I mean, do you have ads out there already? You're like, so?
Well, a lot of people, when they hear about, okay, you know, they'll take a fair shot about who our target demographic is for the car drivers. And a lot of people think college kids fit that archetype very well because, you know, they have cars, they're looking to make a little bit of extra money on the side. But the problem is they're not our target market for drivers because of a very large problem is that they don't drive a lot.
Right.
You know, you might drive to the
very
local.
Yeah.
You might drive to the grocery store once every 2 weeks, or you might drive to the liquor store once a week, right, or whatever you want to buy.
Our students in this area don't do that.
Right. Sure. But what we're looking for is the moms that drive and pick up their kids from school, that take them to soccer practice, that go to church on Sundays. We're looking for any type of committed worker who has a job which requires them to travel a lot. And, you know, obviously we have a ceiling to where a demographic ceiling to where we don't get drivers past a certain income level, right?
Okay.
Is because if you're making $100K a month, you really don't need that $100 a month.
Right.
However, as you go farther and farther down, is that $100 goes further depending on the economic situation which you're in. So, you know, what we look to do is we have a sweet spot, right? people who have enough money to buy a car, right? Like a reputable car, which isn't driving a lemon, but they also need that $100 a month. Not necessarily need to put food on the table, but
it's nice to have an extra $100,
exactly.
And that's what it basically is. It averages out to be about $100.
It averages out to be about $100 a month. Yeah, so it kind of pays for itself, right? If you're driving a car around, then hey, you put this out in your car, you're gonna get free gas, right? Whatever you can use that $100 for is, the relevance.
And so you do have advertisers right now?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
We do.
What kinds of people are advertising? What kinds of businesses?
So at the very beginning, we were working more on proof of concept of kind of validating this business model to show that it can sustain in the long run. And what we did is we worked with a diamond shop, a jewelry store called Orly Diamonds, located on Route 202. They were kind of the early Angeles, right? The first people to kind of jump on board with a very new idea. So we're very thankful to Orly, who's the owner of that business.
Okay.
And then we worked with a gym, Elite Jiu-Jitsu. Okay. So we've worked with a diamond shop, a gym, and then we got in contact with a development group, Raybold Development Group, right? They are also kind of an early adopter of our idea. And right now we just, so they put 3 cars on the road to begin with. They liked the service which we provided, which I can dive into later if you want me to get into more detail.
Raybold, what do they do?
They're a development group. So
they developing real estate?
They develop residential real estate, like apartments and condos, and they also the division that we specifically worked with was their self-storage division. So they have about 5 or 6 self-storage facilities here in northern Delaware, which they're looking to fill more spaces within the self-storage.
And the reason for my asking those questions is to get an idea of what kinds of things that they're trying to accomplish with their advertising.
Sure.
And do you offer, in terms, obviously it always gets down to, and I don't know what the costs are for the advertising, but it gets back to ROI.
Absolutely.
And value. Are you proving value? So is there a way for you to track results for these advertising?
Absolutely. Well, I'm very glad you hit on that, because that is one of the huge things that we are proving right now is what is our ROI here, because at the end of the day, that is the most fundamental question that any advertiser can ask is, when I spend this money, am I getting an ROI that I feel justifies the cost of spending this money? So what we're doing is we're tackling that issue right now. So we've kind of validated the business model from an operational perspective, but now we're doing it from a value perspective, showing that, hey, when you put in $20,000 per month into this medium, when we put 30 cars on the road, or whatever that number is when they're driving around hundreds upon hundreds of miles every month, getting in a very targeted area, the results that you see, whether it be emails, phone calls, people walking in your store, justifies the cost that you paid to put those cars on the road in the first place. So that's what we're working on doing right now. And we're actually teaming up with the University of Delaware's marketing department in setting up, we're de facto scientists right now. The way we're setting up this experiment to validate this concept is we're trying to be as data backed as possible, to be as objective as possible, to show, hey, look, we really do make a difference, and here's the evidence.
And that is so crucial, because if you look at any of the statistics, nowadays things are a little bit different in terms of how advertising works, in terms of being driven more by the consumer, whether that be a business consumer or a consumer,
sure.
More so than by the actual business that has the product or service. So what that means is that customers are driving where you need to advertise. And they're right now, you look at an average customer, they're looking at up to 9 different places for information about a product or service before they even actually make that decision.
Yeah.
So, and when you rank those things, obviously you're looking at the internet and the internet search, Google, Yahoo, Bing, and all of those other major search engines, as well as the advertising on mobile that's becoming much more relevant. I mean, they said that 67% of people now, when they're performing a search, they're doing it on a mobile device.
Wow.
So the desktop is no longer, I wouldn't say no longer, but it's not as valuable. So then everybody has to adjust their advertising and marketing to fit those buying habits and the behavior of their marketplace. So when I ask questions about the value and being able to prove that value, we've seen a trend where billboard advertising, has decreased dramatically. So it was very brave of you to go into a format where it's related to billboards and this type of signage. So I was curious as to how, well, first of all, you're extremely knowledgeable. And that's, I don't know if you're the salesperson out there talking to these people, setting up these particular deals with the advertisers, but you come across as being, number one, caring, and number two, very knowledgeable about how you can go about helping them with their business. So when you look at the decrease in billboard advertising, or the revenues from that, and you think about the medium itself, that's what becomes most important, because that's what's changed. People are driving much faster, so they're zipping by a billboard in so many seconds.
Right.
So how do you maintain the attention then of these people that are seeing these cars whisking by?
So that's a great point. So let me comment on something you said a little bit earlier, which is the rise of advertising is happening on the internet, and it's happening on the phone, because as we know, that's where people are spending more time.
That's right.
However, a part of the advertising industry which isn't going away anytime soon, and realistically will probably never go away, because as long as the price justifies the value that you're getting from that service. Out-of-home advertising will always be around.
Absolutely.
However, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that all different subcategories of out-of-home advertising are the same.
That's right.
So, here's a fundamental premise which I'd like to put out there, which is just kind of a law of human nature, which is we pay attention to things that we don't commonly see. So attention gravitates towards irregularity. And what happens when you see something over and over and over again that you are not forced to see, that you have to voluntarily turn your head, is, guess what? Over years upon years of seeing the same thing, you stop paying attention to that as closely as you did when you were 2 or 3 years old, out of your baby seat, looking around in your surroundings when you're driving down the road in a car. So what the advertising industry has to do as a whole is you have to continuously evolve in order to capture attention in new ways, because if you remain stagnant, people tune it out and they stop listening to it and they stop paying attention to it. So what we have here on our hands is just kind of a dinosaur. Is we have something that has been a medium that has been around since the mid 1800s, which people have not really questioned. Right? Is people are like a lot of marketing execs think, okay, we need to hit a general market in this specific geography. Let's put up a couple billboards. However, they kind of once again, it's questioning facts. Is this actually making a difference to justify that cost, or are we just falling into that normal mindset that, hey, my boss always used to invest in this because it's the right way to hit out of home.
Right.
But people need to question, okay, is this actually making a difference here? And if so, how do we prove it?
Well, this is wonderful conversation. I hope everyone is getting as much out of it as I am in meeting these two gentlemen. We're going to take a quick break and come back with a little bit more with Mac and with Brian as it relates to networking and the impact that has had on their ability to be successful.
You can't. Do those magic words motivate you? Has anyone ever told you that you can't? You can't be an entrepreneur. You can't be a business owner. You don't have what it takes. How many successful businesses started without incorporating? I'm John Williams, the president of Inc. Now. For 39 years, Inc. Now has been incorporating first-time entrepreneurs just like you. Over 15,000 companies. from mom and pop businesses to worldwide enterprises. InkNow.com, based in Delaware, can have you incorporated in only a few minutes for $298. InkNow makes starting your LLC easy. Learn more about what InkNow can do for you. On the web, visit incnow.com. That's incnow.com. What do you have to lose? If you think you can't be an entrepreneur, then don't. I'm here to tell you, you can. Plant a seed. Ink Now. Dreamers Wanted.
Welcome to Wilmington, Delaware. At Preservation Initiatives, we bring beautiful lofts to you. The recently renovated lofts at 400 Market Street are a must-see. A part of Registered National Historic District. Featuring spacious floor plans, custom glass windows, solid surface countertops, stainless steel appliances, custom lighting, wood flooring, large closets, pocket doors, sunny interiors, high ceilings plus beautifully detailed trim molding. Enjoy the sights, sounds, and tastes of Market Street. Just a short walk from the Wilmington riverfront, featuring family-friendly places to enjoy, with plenty of restaurants, entertainment, and other small-town conveniences. Wilmington, Delaware, in the middle of it all. Reserve today. Preservation Initiatives. Urban revitalization through historic preservation.
Preservation Initiatives is a wonderful, wonderful gem that we have here in the city of Wilmington. Don McGinley, its founder, has been developing historic properties since 1979. He's had properties in Boston, Miami, Philly, and now Wilmington. If you want to contact Preservation Initiatives in reference to any of the residential or commercial properties, please call them at 302-543-7565. That's 302-543-7565.
You're listening to WFAI 1510 AM. Welcome back to this week's edition of Evolution Strategies, Business Sustainability and Growth Simplified. If you're just joining us, get your pen and paper ready for more free advice from Carolyn Lighty and her guests.
Welcome back. Today we're talking about connecting the dots, maximizing quality connections and resources. We're talking about how to really utilize networking to its fullest to help you develop the relationships and the resources you need to make your business more successful. We are talking today with Brian Drysdale. He's with the Delaware Referral Group and owner of Instant Imprints of Delaware, and also Mac Nagaswami. I love that name. He's our startup spotlight today. He's the owner of PenguinAds. So welcome back, gentlemen.
Hey, well,
thank you.
Thanks.
Great. So let's talk a little bit more about the networking, and that you've done. Mac, as far as networking, was that a part of how you were able to establish certain resources? Or I know that you have some mentors in your business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I don't think, if you live in a box, it's hard to do anything. So you constantly have to put yourself out there. You constantly have to meet new people, be shaking new hands, be introduced to new people, because that's just the way the world works. You can't stay complacent and expect the world to cater to your business. You have to prove yourself first. So you have to go out there and meet people who are already established in the business community, who already have vendors, who already have suppliers, who already know people who could really help you out in your situation. And guess what? You would never be able to find that information out if you didn't go out there and meet those people in the first place. So it is absolutely a fundamental part of business which you can't take out.
Brian, what about your experience with networking? How did that help you?
Been a little bit all over the place with my networking. When I first started, I got pretty heavily involved the Newcastle County Chamber, and then I started looking more towards the state chamber, and I met some great people in both of those places, and then was introduced to other purely networking groups that I am still involved with. I think there's 3 or 4 groups that I have monthly or bi-weekly meetings with, and it does two things from the business owner perspective. One, of course, there's the networking, there's the FaceTime, but it forces you to get out of the office. Instead of getting stuck in every day. You're just back in the office, sitting in the back, and you never get out and remember what it's like to be out talking to other people and getting other people's perspectives. And then the latest piece is I joined the Small Business Chamber, I think it was about a year and a half ago, and that was a completely different experience than the other two chambers. And not that there's anything wrong with the county or the state, it's just different. And each one, the county and the state, are different too. But the Small Business Chamber is full of business owners and decision makers for the business, so you actually can have a little bit easier time talking to people about what do they need, how do they see your company, and have a dialogue, business owner to business owner. And
that's the Joan Verplank? Is that the one, Delaware Small Business?
The Small Business Chamber.
Is that the one that is the president? Or who's the person?
Bob Older is the one who's running that one.
Bob, okay.
And got great events, and we've actually just spread down into the middle/lower part of Delaware in the Dover area.
Bob and I have emailed, actually.
Sure.
I should remember that. Yeah, I'm going to have him on the show.
He's great. Yeah. When he tried for a couple of years to get it up and going, and it took a little bit, but now it does
take a little bit.
You've got again, it's another different group of people that pull together, and it's called Delaware Small Business Chamber, but you get people from Maryland and South Jersey as well. So it's a good group that we pull together.
I want to go through, I have a couple of tips here for networking, and I want to get your feedback on some of them. The first one that I always say is that, as I started out with on the show, I said that you should be looking at networking with the goal of helping other people.
Absolutely.
Because an awful lot of folks will come up to you. How many times has that happened to you when someone comes up to you? Oh, I'm really happy to meet you.
This is what I do.
Right, exactly.
This is what I do.
Exactly.
So you kind of have to flip that around the other way. So when you're approached by someone and someone comes up and say, "Hi, my name is Brian. I print T-shirts," you stop listening.
Yes.
Right. But if someone comes up and says, "Hi, my name is Brian. What do you do?" You're going to talk.
Totally different.
And as long as you remember to return the favor and ask them what they do, then it works.
Yeah.
And you actually can have a good conversation.
Yeah.
When you go up just selling yourself and pushing yourself, it's not normally well received.
It's the wrong way
that's
to do
the
it.
Business card exchange, where you can walk around a room for half an hour, grab 100 business cards, and achieve absolutely nothing in your time.
I wanted to make a quick comment here, Carolyn, which is this comes down to a basic tenet wrote in The Prince by Machiavelli, which is the best way to get what you need is to appeal to the needs of others.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Wonderful statement. I would tell people, I had this wonderful friend down in Tampa, and she's still fantastic and really good at what she does. She works for the public broadcasting station down there. And she would always say to me, "Carolyn, I went to this event and I got 100 cards and I passed out 200 cards and all of this other stuff." And I would go to events with her, and I'd say, I won't say, I was going to say her name, but I would say, "Why are Susie Q, whatever your name is, why are you wasting your time doing that?" She would say, "Why are you standing there?" And I said, "What I'm doing, I look at this as playing the game of chess, first of all. Everything is very strategic in what I do."
Sure.
So when you're in a room of people, my goal is to figure out who everybody else wants to talk to. That's the first thing I'm doing. So I'm standing there. She's like, "Why are you standing there?" "Because I'm surveying the room."
Right.
And that's what I do. I want to talk to the person, because you're going to notice very quickly there might be 2 or 3 people that everybody is gravitating towards. So not to say that everyone else isn't important in their own right and have some value, but for me, because I'm very strategic, my time is valuable also, and you should treat your time as being extremely valuable. Those are the people that I go up to with something to offer.
Sure.
What I may do is use someone else to find out more about that person before I approach them. Right. So I get that intelligence before I make the approach. But it's always about, I heard that you were doing X, Y, and Z, and I think that's fantastic. Is there something that I can do to help you?
Sure.
And that's how I approach it. And it works out much, much better. You would agree. Okay, the second tip that we have here is understanding their needs before you tell them your needs. And that's kind of the same thing that you've already talked about, Let's see. You don't need to know the most people. You need to know just the right people. So focus on finding the people that are relevant to you and what you're doing. A lot of times we also make a mistake of networking within our established network.
Stay inside your comfort group.
Exactly,
right.
Your comfort zone. You need to get out of that. You need to find people with other areas of expertise that belong to other groups. and make yourself known to them, because in that instance, you're becoming more valuable. Your skill set, what you have to offer, becomes more valuable when you get outside of those who are already in your circle of influence.
Sure.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I find it's easy if you find someone that knows a lot of people, and that's the person that you become tight with, because then they make the soft introduction. You're at a networking event and they've got a crowd of 3 or 4 people around them, and if you go up there, you're going to stand next to the other 3 or 4 people and just stand there and wait, and you're trying to be polite about it. Well, this other person knows them, so they're going to walk up, grab them by their elbow, and say, "I want you to meet this guy. I want you to meet Mac. Come over here, meet Mac. He's got this great business idea. Come over here." And that's going to loosen them up a little bit and remove all the noise that they were just hearing.
Yeah.
So finding those people through other networking opportunities, and find that couple people who knows everybody. And in Delaware, there's a group of people and they know everybody. You don't need to know all of them.
Yeah,
but if you know a couple of them, they know everybody.
Everyone, you can get connected. What is that, the 6 degrees of separation?
It doesn't take 6 in Delaware. Talking about 2, maybe 3.
That's great. Which is one of the other comments I was going to make, that I always instruct people to try to make one new contact every day.
Sure.
Because eventually you're going to find out that someone that you say hello to is going to say, "Oh, you know what? I heard about you already," because of that 6 degrees of separation. Or in Delaware, let's make it 3.
Okay.
Mac, did you want to make a comment about any of those?
In regards to networking, I just have to completely concur with everything both of you stated. And going off something that Brian said is, the power of a soft introduction, it just goes so much further than the power of a cold introduction. If you just approach somebody without them knowing who you are, where you come from, there are naturally a lot of inhibitors, a lot of barriers of trust, right? Of who is this person who's approaching me? What do they want? What's their ulterior motive?
Yes.
But if you get an introduction by an acquaintance of that person, well, then now somebody's liable. If I'm talking to somebody who's in a position of authority and I get introduced by a mutual friend, if I burn that bridge with the person of authority, the mutual friend gets hit on his credibility.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're putting your own reputation on the line.
Absolutely.
By making the contact. I'm vouching for them.
That person,
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What one of the other points that I usually make is that you need to develop a habit of introducing other people to other people.
Same idea.
Connecting the dots for
Absolutely.
them. Because then you're more valuable. Everybody wants to know someone who can connect them to someone else.
Absolutely.
So the more you do that, the more connections you're going to have. And again, those connections need to be good quality. I always think about quality. The quality contacts that you have in your network are going to be, 10 times better than, knowing everybody, and having a huge network. And I find, unfortunately, that a lot of folks allow others to attach to their coattail that really are, that's why I talked about the haters and the takers. You have those people that are just drawing your energy. They're cannibalizing your success to a degree because you've allowed them to come along. And again, if their credibility, what did they say about birds of a feather, flock together. You don't want to be associated sometimes with those folks that are attaching themselves to you. So very, very important to find like-minded quality people as a way to enhance your own network. I wanted to talk a little bit more about going back to some of the challenges you guys have had, because everyone who goes into business, I think, I don't know how many, I forget the statistic on how many new businesses start and then fail within the first.
I think it's 4 out of 5.
It's really low.
Yeah. 1 out of 5
really
succeed.
high. I'm sorry. Yeah. So that's scary. And that's because of those challenges and maybe not having the resources, the skill set, or what have you, to be able to get over those particular hurdles. So what have you experienced in terms of
challenges? So many. So I kind of like your idea at the beginning
here.
Just
give me a couple of them.
Going back to your idea of connecting the dots. And when you were given the coloring book when you were younger, they were numbered, and they told you what order to go around. Well, when you start your own business, all you see are a bunch of dots, and you have no idea which order to connect them, and you're just hoping that you at the end come up with something that looks close to what you were going after.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenges. You struggle right away with, well, who do I hire? Am I going to do everything? Well, of course, I'm not going to do everything. So who else is going to do part of this?
And when? And when do you hire?
Exactly. So you never want to wait until you can't serve the customer to be able, have such a high demand that oh, now I need somebody. You want to hire them before that happens. But if it's too far beforehand, then you're going to go out of business because you have all this open, availability and no way to pay them. So it's a challenge. But I would say that the biggest challenge and the biggest thing to learn from anyone at any level starting any business is, how am I going to learn the things that I don't already know? And for me, in the print industry, we got trained on the machines, but problems come up, things come up. My headquarters is out in California, so they're 3 hours behind. So if I'm in and we're East Coast mentality, Mid-Atlantic mentality compared to San Diego mentality.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're in the shop at 7:00 in the morning to get stuff done. Well, if something goes wrong at 7:00, I would have to wait until noon at best to get someone on the phone. That's 5 hours. That's almost the whole day. So you build relationships with your vendors. So at 9:00, you can call them. You're like, look, this just went wrong. What do I do? How do I fix this? Or how do I price this? I've never done this job before. I know I can do it, but what should I charge for it? And there's a lot of my vendors where I ask, okay, what's the kind of average going rate for this? And you always get it depends, but they tend to give you a range. And it shortens that learning curve a lot. But the biggest challenge is learning how you're going to learn what you don't already know.
How important was it, or did you even start with a business plan?
Absolutely. So in school, you learned how to write the business plan, and you flushed it all the way out. And I had done that with a couple of the businesses that I thought of starting and realized that it's not practical. Or if I can't get this, it's a deal breaker, and don't keep trying. With Instant Imprints, being that it was part of a franchise, I didn't exhaust the full business plan process. It would have been helpful to exhaust it a little bit more, but definitely you're still putting it together and thinking through things. It might not have all been on paper in paragraph form and whatnot to present it, but it was all sketched out. And actually, at least 7 years ago, you had to have that in order for any bank to talk to you. So you had to put some sort of business plan in writing in order to get any sort of funding.
What about you, Mac? Did you go through the formal process of developing a business plan? And
not at all.
Why do I know? I kind of looked at your face and I thought, he's going to tell me no. That wasn't part of the plan.
Well, I think just like the overall perspective of entrepreneurship is changing as a fundamental whole, which is the old school mentality is before you even move, you need to write entirely everything of how your business is going to operate. And people are slowly turning to the truth, which is
to the truth.
You need to get out that front door and actually test that idea before you make an assumption that your business is going to work. You need to validate that idea. So who's going to buy that product? What pain are you solving? Are you sure that your target customer group actually wants to buy this?
Exactly.
So you need to ask those questions first and get out of the building and start testing these ideas before you spend 2 weeks locked up in your attic, writing all the details about what the forecast is going to look like in 10 years from now. It's like, don't waste your time. Don't waste their time. Get out of the building, test the idea.
So I'm going to challenge you on that.
Okay.
I would say that's part of writing the business plan. You need the part of the proof of concept is part of writing the business plan. Getting the surveys out, how much you're going to charge, all that is the first step. If you never take the time to then go back and plan it out, it's possible that 5 years down the road you realized I've been inefficient and way off track from where I was trying to go. You never get past the initial launch phase.
So you're talking about formalizing it for people who may not be at the point where you can have it in your head and go out and do those things. There needs to be some outline of the steps, I would think, especially when it comes to competitive analysis, the market analysis. You're talking about the value proposition and being able to test it. I think that those things, someone who may have a passion for something, you've gone through the education process, you've had some wonderful classes that taught you a lot of that, but I think the average person with a passion may not know what those steps are, in which case they need to go through that.
You say, I really love this idea. It's, jewelry. I love making jewelry. I'm going to go become a jeweler and make all custom jewelry. And I love it. I can charge this much for it, but they never sit down and do the math of, well, if I'm going to have a retail storefront that costs me this much, I need to sell 10 pieces a month.
Yeah, what do I need to sell?
So how many do I need to create a month? And how do I get that many interested people? And they never go through and realize, I need 45 new people to meet every month. How is that going to happen? So, yeah, I agree, Matt. You do need to have that proof that, yes, I can create a piece of jewelry that looks good that people want to buy. But it's so easy to just get caught on that, and then 5 years later you realize, or might not even take 5 years, 2 years later you realize, I didn't put the plan together so I can actually make money doing this, and it turns into a hobby instead of a business.
Well, so my take on that, first, I love the discussion, and I am still going to disagree, because the first step, no matter what you do, is to determine if there is a demand for your product or service. And the whole part about a business plan becomes relevant after you have determined that demand, that people will actually buy that product. So once you determine that demand, then write the business plan.
Sure.
Then write the business plan, but don't write the business plan if you have not justified whether that demand exists or not. Then you're wasting your time.
I agree.
Absolutely.
And that's the research and discovery part of what you need to go through before you even move to those next levels.
Right.
But it's important to get folks who are listening to understand that there is a formal process, whether you do it mentally or on paper, that you need to go through in order to hopefully come out on the other side with a success. I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to give some contact information, because you mentioned several things. Like Brian, you mentioned you guys have an event coming up on Tuesday. Tell us about that.
So this is the Delaware Referral Group side of things.
You're
wear
wearing
so
your
many
two hats today.
Oh, so many hats. It's just a mixer that we've got. We did one back in the spring. It's over at El Jefe on Kirkwood Highway in the Astro Shopping Center. It starts at 6 o'clock. We've got a Facebook page set up for it. Delaware Referral Group. It's on there. The event's on there. It's just an open, relaxed forum for meeting people. It's not structured. We're probably going to have some, I know we're going to have some door prizes. And we're collecting a canned food for admission and just having a good time. Kind of your first possible holiday party. That's all it is. It's just kind of relaxing and having a good time and meeting new people.
There's going to be donations made to a nonprofit, I assume?
Yep, all the food is going to be donated to a soup kitchen or a food pantry. We haven't nailed down which one yet, but definitely that's my job. I get to figure that out.
So is this something that you do? These mixers are how often do you have the mixers?
This is our second one this year. We're probably going to keep it about every 6 months that we're going to do one in the spring, one in the fall. But it's just kind of more of a relaxed atmosphere. There's no guest speaker, there's no sit down kind of thing. It's just kind of talking, socializing, and learning about other people's businesses, and really more on a personal level of who they are and what they do, and hopefully building friendships as well as relationships.
Okay. And your regularly scheduled meetings for your networking group, when do those take place?
DRG is the first and third Wednesday of every month, except for November and December. It's only the first Monday because of Thanksgiving
Holidays
and Christmas.
And
we get rid of the second meeting that month.
And is there a website for DRG?
The best way to find us is on Facebook.
Okay.
And just search Delaware Referral Group. We're the only one.
Okay. And turning now to Mac. Are you involved with any events and activities outside of running your business? I mean, tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very involved at the Coin Loft.
Yes, I wanted you to talk about that.
Ran by Wes, Mona, and Steve.
They've been on the show.
Yeah, great. We're greatly indebted and show great gratitude towards Dan Freeman and the Horn Program in Entrepreneurship out of University of Delaware, because that is also where we've got a tremendous amount of help from.
On the show too, Dan.
Dan Freeman, right? Yeah. So he's the director of the Horn Program in Entrepreneurship, and then we're also a member of the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce. And Frank DeSantis has really been a great help to us there. He opens up a lot of doors, and he's really a great advocate for us. So,
and Frank's role is?
The Emerging Economic Center, Emerging Enterprise Center. So what it is, it's kind of like a small incubation program, right, where you take a lot of early businesses that are kind of too weak to survive on their own. If you just said, go in there. So he kind of fosters these businesses in an early stage and makes them strong enough to the point where they can graduate out of the program and survive and thrive on their own. So he works with a lot of beginner stage businesses.
Is there a cost to that program?
From what I know is there is.
Okay.
There is a very, very small fee, which I think is just to kind of counteract some overhead for the chamber, but it's to drive down costs by all means necessary for the business owners. And here is a place where you have free Wi-Fi, a free place to stay, free office space, or office space, which are all
a free place to stay. I was thinking, okay, so
which costs money.
He houses you guys. You have to stay there until
it's
you're
all
able
free,
to...
but it costs money. So I misspoke. It's a very cheap. It's a very cheap place to operate out of.
For and obviously when you're dealing with a fledgling business, you need to keep it so that it's within their price point. So that makes a lot of sense. So tell us how people can get in touch with Penguin Ads.
So I guess the easiest way is just we have a very easy website, PenguinAds.com, and then we have some calls to action on our website. We have an email, we have a phone number, but if anybody wants to get in contact with me directly, my email is just my last name and then the first letter of my first name at PenguinAds.com. So that's Nagaswami M for Mary at PenguinAds.com. And
you know that you have to spell Nagaswami. Don't try to sit there thinking, okay, everyone's going to know how to spell Nagaswami.
So it's N for Nancy, A-G-A-S-W-A, M for Mary, I, M for Mary at PenguinAds.com.
That's fantastic. You mentioned that you're familiar with the Global Startup Battle. They're holding that this week, and I know that the governor was there, I think, for the kickoff and showing his support for small businesses and startups.
Yeah.
So you've been in part of competition.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
How is that? Was it stressful? Or
it's not stressful if you know your business and what you're working on in and out.
Okay.
Because then preparation's already taken care of if you work on this as your full-time job and this is your passion, this is your hobby. You need very little preparation to speak on a subject that you're very comfortable on speaking on.
That makes sense.
However, one thing that you do need to modify is to kind of the structure of the competition. So if they want to see idea viability and then your best persuasive pitch on on why an investor should consider you, is you need to think about how you modify the package of your business to fit the criteria of what the competition is judging by. So it does require a little foresight and thinking about things in the future. But in terms of what you're going to be speaking on, that should be natural.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fantastic show. A lot of information was shared with our listening audience, a lot of inspiration, a lot of specifics about how to go about networking and connecting those dots. I want you guys to remember to connect the dots using quality connectors that help you move your business and ideas forward. Avoid those that would rain on your parade or attach themselves to your coattails only to cannibalize your success. I want to thank you guys. If you have a parting comment, you got 30 seconds to leave our audience with something that you think will be important to them.
Well, thank you, Carolyn, for having me on. It's been a pleasure myself. And just to put it out there, anyone who's looking to start a business, don't be afraid to ask other people. In Delaware, everyone's willing to help. So just ask.
Okay. And you, Mac, what would be your parting words for our audience?
Well, it would be, once again, a thanks for you for having us on the show. Sure. And then in terms of entrepreneurship, the bigger picture here is just determination, as you have to go out there and get it done and want to do it. There's going to be tons of challenges, but you need to be persistent enough to knock those barriers down. And in terms of a message directly relating to PenguinAds is, for any listeners, is we can always use more car drivers in our program. So if anybody's interested in getting paid to drive, go to our website, PenguinAds.com, and you'll get a lot more information. And anybody who wants to get in contact with me, hopefully you listened just a minute previously to get my email.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
You can't. Do those magic words motivate you? Has anyone ever told you that you can't? You can't be an entrepreneur. You can't be a business owner. You don't have what it takes. How many successful businesses started without incorporating? I'm John Williams, the president of Inc. Now. For 39 years, Inc. Now has been incorporating first-time entrepreneurs just like you. Over 15,000 companies, from mom and pop businesses to worldwide enterprises. IncNow.com, based in Delaware, can have you incorporated in only a few minutes for $298. Inc. Now makes starting your LLC easy. Learn more about what Inc. Now can do for you. On the web, visit incnow.com. That's incnow.com. What do you have to lose? If you think you can't be an entrepreneur, then don't. I'm here to tell you, you can. Plant a seed